The first time I realized everything I believed about power was wrong happened in a room that smelled like polished wood and expensive coffee. I was standing there in a suit I'd saved 3 months to buy, holding a folder I'd rewritten a dozen times, while 3 men across the table talked about me like I wasn't even there. One of them actually laughed and said, "He's not ready, he's just a background guy." And yeah, that stuck. I wasn't born into influence. No safety net, no famous last name, no quiet backdoor into success. I grew up learning how to disappear, how to stay quiet so people didn't notice how little you had. And for a long time, that habit followed me into adulthood. I worked harder than everyone else, stayed later than everyone else, said yes when I should have said no. And still, I was invisible. You know what I mean? That meeting wasn't even supposed to be a turning point. It was just another day of being underestimated. My boss, a smooth-talking executive named Randall Cole, sat at the head of the table, nodding along while his partners tore my proposal apart. Not because it was bad, but because it was mine. Every time I opened my mouth, Randall cut me off. Every time I tried to explain, he smiled like I was a kid interrupting adults. When the meeting ended, Randall pulled me aside and said, "Don't take it personally. You're just not leadership material." He said it gently, which somehow made it worse, like he was doing me a favor by crushing me early. That night, I went home and stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every moment in my head. And somewhere between anger and exhaustion, something clicked. Not rage, not revenge. Clarity. I realized I had been trying to win in a game designed to keep people like me losing, and the only way out was to stop playing it their way. So I did something reckless. I stopped asking for permission. I started documenting everything. Emails, decisions, quiet side comments that crossed lines just enough to matter later. I started talking directly to clients instead of routing everything through Randall. I didn't undermine him, not openly. I just became impossible to ignore. Results have a funny way of doing that. Of course, Randall noticed. One afternoon, he leaned against my desk, smiling too hard, and said, "Careful. People who reach too fast tend to fall." I smiled back and said, "I'm just doing my job." And yeah, my hands were shaking under the desk, but I meant it. The real turning point came 3 months later during a high-stakes pitch to a new investor group. Randall took full control of the presentation, left my name off the slides, and introduced me as support staff. That word hit harder than any insult. Support staff. Like I was furniture. Halfway through the meeting, one of the investors asked a technical question. Randall froze. Just for a second. Then he looked at me. "You can answer that," he said, like he was throwing scraps. So I answered. Calmly. Clearly. I explained the model, the risks, the upside. I saw heads nodding. I saw pens stop. I saw attention shift. And when I finished, the room was quiet in a way that felt different. Heavy. Focused. One of the investors leaned forward and said, "Why isn't he leading this?" Randall laughed it off, but his face tightened. I noticed. And from that moment on, I knew something had changed. After the meeting, Randall exploded. He cornered me in the hallway and said I embarrassed him, said I was out of line, said I needed to remember my place, and for the first time I didn't apologize. I just looked at him and said I did exactly what you asked. That's when the bullying started. Subtle at first. Meetings moved without notice. Deadlines shifted without warning. Projects reassigned. He wanted me gone, but not loudly. Quiet removals are cleaner. Here's the thing about being underestimated for most of your life. You learn patience. You learn timing. You learn how to wait until the moment actually matters. I waited. 6 weeks later, the company faced a serious problem. A regulatory issue Randall had ignored, buried under optimism and arrogance. The kind of problem that doesn't care about confidence. The kind that explodes. I had flagged it early. I had emails to prove it. He brushed me off every time. When the board called an emergency meeting, Randall walked in confident, still believing his reputation would protect him. He started talking. 5 minutes in, he contradicted himself. 10 minutes in, the questions got sharper. And then someone asked me directly, "You worked on this compliance layer, right?" I took a breath. And I told the truth. Not emotionally, not dramatically. Just fact after fact. Timeline. Documentation. Warnings. Silence followed. The kind of silence that rearranges power. Randall tried to interrupt me. The chair of the board raised a hand and said, "Let him finish." That was it. That was the moment. By the end of the meeting, Randall was placed on leave. By the end of the week, he was gone. No big speech, no apology, just an empty office and a lot of people suddenly wanting to talk to me. Winning didn't feel like I expected. It wasn't fireworks. It was quiet, heavy, almost sad. I realized how much of my energy had gone into surviving someone else's insecurity. I was offered Randall's role 2 weeks later. I said yes. Not because I wanted his power, but because I knew exactly how it could be misused. And here's the part people argue with me about. I didn't fire everyone who supported him. I didn't clean house. I changed the rules. Clear accountability. Transparent decisions. No silent punishments. No shrinking people to feel bigger. Some folks quit. Some stayed and adapted. The company got better. Not louder. Better. Sometimes I think about that version of me standing in that first meeting holding his folder being laughed at. I wish I could tell him this. Being underestimated is painful, but it's also information. It tells you exactly who not to become. So here's my question for you. Was Randall a villain or just a product of a system that rewards dominance over decency? And when someone finally rises above that system, do they owe the same cruelty back, or something better? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand.